Hi everybody. I'm coming to you this time from the dining room of the rectory, right at our table. And this is exactly where I write most of my sermons. So I thought this would be a good place to film this. And as you can see, I'm in a collar because this is an honest to goodness sermon, just like I would preach for you on a Sunday morning. So here we go. Now, despite the fact that I am having trouble keeping track of what day it is, I do know that we are coming to the end of Lent. This is the fifth Sunday of Lent, 2020. A popular Facebook post is now proclaiming, "This is the lentiest Lent I have ever lented." In our wildest imaginations, I'm sure that none of us could have anticipated what we have now all given up for Lent. Perhaps that means that the resurrection proclaimed at Easter will be likewise as none before. When I looked at the readings for this Sunday and saw Lazarus, my first thought was to get as far away from it as possible. After all, it could sound a little flippant to talk about the favor granted to one person who was a good friend of Lazarus, when so many are dying. Aren't they his friends too? And then I realized that this is the story that we need right now. And it's not just about Lazarus, at least not him alone. We are all in the tomb right now. Humanity is in the tomb. And the new life to which we are called isn't a resuscitated corpse still wearing burial wrappings. It's about what Jesus' ministry was always about, getting the world to see things as God sees them. The first recorded healing by Jesus was sight. And the theme of blindness weaves itself through his entire story. People see what he does and who he helps and how he does it. And they are left in amazement saying, "I once was blind, but now I see." There's a sub-story running through this reading as well, and that of danger to Jesus. John, in his usual pejorative characterizations of the Jews, reminds us how they were ready to stone him in Jerusalem and were still ready to stone him or worse. And then Jesus tells his companions that now that Lazarus has died, he's going to Bethany, which is just across the valley from Jerusalem. And they say, "You're going back there? Don't you think that's a little bit dangerous?" We begin to see, there's that word again, that Jesus is going back to open the eyes of those who do not wish to see. In the raising of Lazarus, Jesus is confronting his foes because they're all there with Martha and Mary. And he's kind of saying, "Take that. I am not afraid of you or what you can do because I see things differently. I see power differently. I see life and death differently." And in a bit of theatrical foreshadowing, he tells them that a tomb is temporary. So that's what Jesus was doing. But what was Lazarus doing? We know nothing about his time in the tomb or afterwards. Surely somebody asked him something about it. And I wonder, did Lazarus have one of those classic moving toward the light and welcomed by angels and seeing loved ones long past? Was he just settling into the bliss of it all when, wait, what? I have to go back? And bam, there he is in a dark cave all tied up. I always wonder who and how he was after that. And that is the question for us on this fifth Sunday of Lent, 2020, in the weeks and months of pandemic. There's a part, who will we be and who do we want to be? There's a part of me that is quite content to stay in my tomb. I have a lovely tomb with plenty of food and TP. I have a gentle and loving husband who's able to get out of the house enough to stay centered and content. My children are grown and far away, and they're all fine and safe. I know that I am one of the lucky ones. And I know that tombs are temporary. Not only the tomb of quarantine, but also the tomb of death. And let's not forget that not everyone's tomb looks like mine. Some are full of fear and menace. Some are full of anger and frustration, like having to wear a garbage bag over scrubs to take care of someone whose infection could kill you. Now, we don't know if Lazarus learned anything from his tomb experience. I sure hope that we learn a lot from ours. And not only learn, but decide to call for a world that is better, a world that lives with clearer sight, seeing everyone as God's beloveds, all deserving the blessings that God intends for all people. This time is teaching us, and hopefully we are learning, that we need each other and that we are in some measure responsible to each other. We have had the reality of economic vulnerability for so many come streaming out of our televisions and made real in so many lives. May we want a world that is more fair. We are witnesses daily to courage in the face of real danger. May we be as courageous and strive for justice and peace and respect the dignity of every human being. We've been reminded of how we hunger for our contact with each other. May we hunger as much for God. Now, while this tomb may feel confining, may we find in the waiting a time of rich learning and growth and grace. The tomb is temporary, and alleluias await us. Lent is coming to an end. There is still that walk through the rough streets and the looming cross. Lent 2020 has prepared us for that walk in a way we never expected. He did it. We can do this. Amen.